So, hello everyone. Today I wanted to create a Lambda function, but let's make it a bit useful. We'll make a Lambda function that gets a URL, an image URL, and it reads the text that is written inside of the image. So this is going to be more. This part actually it's very small to read the image, although it might seem very glorious. It's over here, the script for you to read the image. You're going to import uh, this package, which you can read about it over here, and they even give you a TypeScript example, and it will return you the text that's written. Okay, so if you want to learn more about it, it's OCR, which stands for uh, yeah, it's written in Portuguese over here. Optic character recognition, I guess. Optic character recognition. Optical character recognition. So, if you want to read about it, but it's basically like these pens that can read the text. Very nice. Okay? So, but the focus of the video will be creating a structure where we can use LocalStack to mock our AWS services and the serverless framework to boot everything inside it so that we can just with one command host everything in the serverless framework or in host everything in LocalStack or directly in AWS, and we can create a dev staging or production environment. Okay, so there is a blog here already written uh, with a few of the commands that we're going to use and the structure if you just want to check it out so that you don't spend a lot of time in the video. Okay, so let's dive to it. First of all, let me put my other repo. I have my my sheets over here so that I don't miscode it. YAML. So we create the YAML file. This is just a Docker Compose. I did another video explaining it for LocalStack so that we can have a LocalStack service. Here is a version. This is we're telling it to take the image of LocalStack, which will get it online. Here we're mapping the port in our PC to the port in the container. And here we specify the services that we're going to use. Even though we're not going to use SQS, we can remove it. Well, just maybe I use it later, so leave it here. This is just for testing. And here I'm mapping my Docker so that LocalStack can use it to spin the Lambda because it creates the Lambda inside a container. So let's run this, and we should now have a LocalStack running, and we can, like usually you would say AWS S3 LS so that you can get while using the AWS CLI, but for this now since we want to use the LocalStack, we can do endpoint URL and then we point to LocalStack localhost at port 4566, and we run this and here. So the command ran, but we don't have any buckets, so it didn't return, but it didn't give any errors. So now let's make a directory and call it read image. Make directory. ls read image text. make directory. Okay, clear cd to read image text, and now we can so it's going to be a TypeScript Lambda, but this is not the focus. You can create your Lambda in anything you want. The focus will be LocalStack and the serverless framework part. Okay, so let's npm init our project and npm install TypeScript dash dash save dev. But as we're in it, let's add tsc types node and ts node dev. Okay, I think that's it. This is all dev dependencies because we just need them for local development. And while it's installing, let's cd to read image text. Maybe I should have given another name, but let's touch main.ts. And now we have our main TS over here. So let's create our Lambda handler. So export a sync function because it's going to be a Lambda. So Lambda must be a function. The Lambda must be an asynchronous function. And we're going to call it handler and then console.log. Let's call it event. And here let's do json.stringify event. You can specify the type that you expect your Lambda to get, but for now let's leave it just as any. Return hello world. This is the basic function for our handler. Now let's init TypeScript, so clear and npx tsc dash dash init so that we have ts configs over here. And I don't know why I keep having this problem. Uninstall TypeScript. Not TypeScript. Yes. Uninstall TSC. And now, so let me check for the version of this thing over here. So npm install TypeScript as dev. Now, will it work? Well, now it works, of course. So now I can init and I can do, let me even take it from, I closed the blog post. There, I think it's a directory build, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if it did add this direct. Yeah, this part over here just so that it has the out directory when we run npm run build basically. And speaking of which, let's add the script for npm run build. So the build command, we actually don't need this one, so build and then yes and npm run build. So now we should have a build directory over here, and the build will have this main.js, which we can even run with build and then main.js. And of course it didn't run anything because we did not invoke it. So let's make it like this. And then npm run build and run it. So we got our console log over here. Okay, so let me remove this, and now since the part of TypeScript is basically done, let's work a little bit with the serverless framework. So let's install the serverless, npm install serverless dash dash save and dev, because it's a dev dependency. So serverless.yaml, and let's create just some simple work. We will have serverless LocalStack app. Let's give it a better name. Uh, read image, read text from image. So this is our service provider. We will have AWS. Let me just copy paste this stuff over here. So for now this is good, and then let's have our functions over here, and then image to text handler, and the handler is going to be in the build directory, the main folder, and the handler over here. And the handler. So let's continue over here, and then this is for the handler, and now let's define the events which will trigger this handler. So let's say that our event is going to be an HTTP request in the path of the main path, basically, and the method you can specify post get, but I will put any. All of them will hit this over here. Okay, but now if we would do this, we will end up hosting it on AWS, and I don't want to do that. I want to host it on LocalStack. So for this, we can run, and let me clear this, npx serverless plugin install -n serverless -localstack. Okay, so this is going to install the serverless LocalStack plugin, and we can add it over here. So here we can create plugins, and in our plugins it's a list of plugins, so it's serverless LocalStack and this is the thing. Now we will do custom, and we will say LocalStack, so on stages of local. So when the stage that we're deploying to local, it's going to use LocalStack. Okay, now we can add another few commands to our package JSON. So let's add a deploy local command, which will run npm run build. We will build our application, and then it will run npx serverless deploy stage, which is going to be local, so that we use the local stack. Okay, so we can run this npm run deploy local. It's building our image, and while it's doing this, let me add some scripts over here. Scripts.sh. So these are just helpers, so to list the S3 buckets, and if we want to list the Lambda function names, we can run this. So as soon as it ends downloading this, I'm going so now my Lambda is up and running. So if I come over here, I got some error over here. She is shown below. Uh, I will see this in a second. Let me just add another command over here, which will be to see the logs. So we can say logs, which is going to be SLS logs dash t function, and then the function is going to be my function name, which is image to text handler. Here I have the main.js. So image and the stage, which is local. Okay, so now I can npm run local logs, run logs, and while I do this, I want to curl over here. So this is the command to see the logs in our Lambda function, and we're getting an error: serverless LocalStack configured endpoints. Let me check why is this happening. So apparently my message, I need to have status codes to 100, otherwise I might get that error from API gateway. Honestly, it's something that I didn't know about it. So like this it should work. So npm run deploy local, and then we can have the logs. I always was also was testing if it was because of the path, but it was not. But I made it with test path. Okay, so npm run logs, and let me just copy this and curl with test. Test. Okay. So I get the response body hello world. Okay. So now we can add. So let me just close this. So we can add more helper, which is serverless offline. So clear. So npx serverless, which is another plugin install -n serverless offline. Okay, and in our serverless framework we can have this and then offline. So just defining the serverless offline, and with serverless offline we can have one more command over here, which will be the run dev. So this is basically, it's to run our application locally, even without using LocalStack. So you can say npm run start dev, it will build, and then it will do SLS offline, which will give you an URL for you to test your function. So this is what we get, hello world, when we enter it here. So it basically kind of mocks a REST API. So you can call it from here and it's always running, and then you have the console logs over here. Okay, so this is another thing. Now let's create our image reader. So npm install Now we're installing this package. Let's add our worker. So here, let's async function, image reader worker, which is going to be const worker equals await create worker, and then it's English, so here it's the language one, and here you can specify a few configurations, like you can console.log each chunk of data that you get, but this is just a fast tutorial. So if you want to, you can check over here. So here you have the language and then few options and configurations. Okay, so the configurations have this loads of that. Okay, so await worker dot recognize, and then the string to the image. So you can actually make it so that it gets the string from the event. Maybe we will do this. So await worker, we need to terminate it, and then let's console.log the data. Console.log my text to be ret.data.text, and let's return this text. So here return text result equals this, console.log this, and return this. And let's call this, so await and const text will be this, and here we can return our text. Okay, so let's run npm run deploy local, and while it's deploying we can actually use the serverless offline. Npm run start dev, I guess it was this one. No, it's not. It is. Ah, cd read image and npm run start dev. So we get over here our text. So it's the text that it's written inside of our image over here. So if we come over here and we access this mid, and this is what's written from this image. So it did work very nice with serverless offline. So we did host it. Now it's hosted on LocalStack. We can access this in the test. So here it's loading. 1 second. And we get the response over here. We can even do npm run logs, or was it logs? Okay, so here it's loading. You can see the event did hit, and then it read the image, and you have this file over here. It's created by the tesseract. Okay, so basically it's this. Now we can even send this with the event. So here we have the path. We can even add more stuff to the path. So what if we add like the image URL over here that we want to analyze the text of from? So what do we get in our logs? So do we even So we can do URL equal this. URL is equal to this. And here you can get this from the query params. You can add it to the query params. You can create it to be as a post request. Like over here, you can create a post and then you send this in the body. You can send the URL of the image or maybe the base 64 of the image, anything like, and then you just create it over here to send it. So what else you can do? You can create a trigger from S3 over here. So events and create an S3 trigger. So this will be an S3 trigger and it will have a bucket. My bucket will be text images bucket. Okay, and I can say that the event is an S3 object created all, and rules is where the suffix is .png. I'm just going to take PNG images from this, and here I can define the resources just so that I can create my bucket. So my S3 bucket. So this is, now I can have the type. It's going to be an AWS bucket. Not Alexa, it's AWS and S3. S3 bucket. And then we have properties. I don't need the policy over here, just the bucket name. Bucket name over here, which is going to be this name over here. And there's some, it must be like this. Let me fix it over here also. So now, if we, in this script over here, if we do AWS S3 list, we only have one bucket, which is from the Lambda function over here, because we do have our Lambda function handler, which is basically the name of our service over here, read text from image, and the stage, which is local, and then our function. And for the S3 bucket, it's basically the same, so local and then serverless deployment bucket. Okay, so let's run npm run deploy local. Again, the same problem. cd to read image. I'm already in. npm run deploy local. I must be in the folder. So now I am deploying my function and it will listen to this events, both of them, and I'm adding my bucket resources. Okay, so let me just wait for this and let's check for our buckets. So now notice that we have two buckets, and once this text image bucket hits my, once I put a PNG image, it will, in this bucket, it will trigger my Lambda function. So let's try this out, and let me just get this image as a PNG over here, and it's this one. So save image as this. Okay, very nice. I have my image. Let me put it in this directory. So I have my image here. Test.png. And just so that I can send it fast, we can do this like this. So we say S3 API, put object, and then the bucket and the bucket name is text image bucket, and then we say the key, which is my test.png, which is body, which is equal to test.png. So this is before this, let me npm run logs, and now this is going to be the logs of our function, and hopefully when we run this, it's going to add an item to our S3 bucket, which will trigger this event and trigger our Lambda. Error parsing body. Blob values must be pathed to file. Okay, so cd to read image text, and now we have it. We did run over here, and we sent the data to our S3 bucket, and here the AWS, our Lambda function did trigger, and this was the object that we got. So let me just create here data.json. Here the event handler of my function, of my Lambda function over here, returned to me the info of the bucket that was triggered. So I have the name of the bucket, I have my object key, so this is the key of my file that was created, few tags, its size. So yeah, basically I have everything here, and just my text didn't log over here. Let me see if it did log over here, but I think this is very old one. I don't know if it did arrow out or something. It might have been, but I don't think so. So basically this is what I wanted to show you. LocalStack with serverless framework and something useful.